Good afternoon, my name's Kevin Graham, he's John Paul Mason, and welcome to a Celtic State of Mind bulletin. It's quite strange, JP, but before you come on here, we've always maybe got something in our head that we're going to talk about in that, but then something turns up. And I think the news this morning of the untimely death of Dio Gaj and his brother, it's sometime, and obviously our thoughts and all of that go out to Liverpool and his family and Liverpool fans who will be feeling it far more than what we're feeling it at the moment. It's just sometimes you get that wee reminder that football players are human beings, rather than sometimes the cartoon figures and the brand names that sometimes we think they are.
Yeah, and it just shows that a footballer, regardless of his status or anything, is as susceptible to life as the rest of us. But I opened Sky Sports News this morning. I always have a wee look, in the morning before coming on to do this with Paul or yourself or whoever. And I saw that it was like the kind of black picture with the grey, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, that can't be real. Mm-hmm. It was one of those ones where you're like, I can't believe this has actually happened. This is really surreal. I don't know too much about the player. I don't really know a lot about Liverpool's team, to be honest. And my interest in English football has waned a lot, despite my leniencies towards those guys. Well, that's up there for a different reason, as I'm sure you're aware of. Paul's upcoming night with Manny, which is amazing. But yeah, no, it's just a horrible, horrible thing, and especially off the back of the euphoria of them winning the league and everything else, and the celebrations, and then for something like that to happen to one of their players is, I can only imagine what I don't want to imagine what it'd be like if it was one of our players, because it's surreal enough and feels like a punch in the gut enough from a distance as a Celtic fan, seeing it happen to another player, another club. But yeah, if it was, their supporters must just be distraught at this moment in time. And yeah, really, really horrific news.
It's always a strange time, I think, and it's happened to myself with Celtic legends that have passed away. And even though you feel a sense of loss, you're never going to feel the same sense of loss as his teammates or the people who know him or his family and stuff like that. And because he's such high profile, he's young as well, I think it triggers things for other people who've maybe lost brothers, sisters at a young age, and tragic circumstances. And because he's so high profile, everybody takes a wee bit and goes, oh, there's a wee bit of intake of breath there, because it is such high profile. As I say, our thoughts and that are with Liverpool and his teammates and his family and that at this precise moment in time. It'll be a difficult day for them, but it just shows you how fickle life can be. I think that's what I saw somebody in the comments say, going about grief junkies. No, I think it's just a wee kind of timely reminder of how fickle life is at times, and you didn't know what's round the corner.
It's a pretty seismic piece of news. It's the headline on Sky Sports News. I think it'd be remiss of us not to talk about it, rather
mention
than
it anyway.
I always think, and I've said this before about, when say it's a musician or somebody that passes away that you've maybe not met personally, but you've seen them play live or seen them play live many times, and you've kind of been in a moment with them in a room, whether it's 1,000 capacity or 10,000 capacity. But the same applies to footballers. It's an attachment that you have, because especially if you're a season ticket holder or a match going fan, you might not be spending time with that player, but you're watching that player play live, and they're playing a part in your life, and their actions make a difference to how you feel, good or bad, at the end of the day. And he's done that massively for Liverpool fans. So it stands to reason that there's going to be a massive amount of upset, especially for those fans that have watched them play week in, week out, and developed a relationship from a distance with them, even though they haven't maybe ever met them. But it's just a case of, you know that player, you know their mannerisms, you know their ability to.
You feel like you know them. You feel like you do know them, and it's a strange thing. It's a really strange thing. I think.
It's even more strange is when Paul got his press access at the end of not last season, the season before, and I'm standing in the trackside, and then like Greg Taylor and James Forrest come over to have a chat with a bunch of us fan media sorts that were mulling around, and all of a sudden you're talking to these people that you've watched, week in, week out for the best part of 5 years, in Greg Taylor's case anyway, and it's a horrible reminder, and another piece of horrible news this morning. Not to make it all doom and gloom, but Keith Mccyver from Optimo. I don't know if you know those guys, the DJs. From
the DJ guys, the DJ boys. Aye.
Keith announced this morning that he's got an incurable brain tumor. It's absolutely horrendous news. I mean, I've been a fan of those guys for a long time, and great, so influential in terms of their impact. I mean, they're always name dropped by LCD Sound System, and they've gone on to play festivals and events throughout the world, having started in initially Edinburgh and then Glasgow. So really sad news to hear that this morning, and power and strength to the guy, because
definitely.
Anyway, we'll talk about Celtic, otherwise there'll be people upset.
No, I'm going to talk about music next. Just really. John McLaughlin comes in. You're not promised tomorrow, regardless of position or wealth. I think that's so true, and everybody should actually remember that. Before we came on earlier, this is a complete and utter pivot to somewhere else. I was dropping my next door neighbour off at the train station, and the Banana Splits came on the radio. A blast for the past, and it got me wondering why. I take it because they were a band. The band was called the Banana Splits, and it was no because they were band. They're no because they were bananas, because they weren't bananas. They were furry animals. And I was just when I was driving the car, going, why was the show called the Banana Splits? But obviously, it must have been the band, eh?
I think so, yeah. I just remember they were on The Big Breakfast in the morning. They used to cut to an episode of the Banana Splits in The Big Breakfast. That happened. It's not a fever dream, that happened.
No, it did actually happen. In the school holidays, it used to be like, you used to get Why Don't You? Then you'd have an episode of the Banana Splits, and then possibly like an episode of Scooby-Doo or something like that. And the Monkeys. I always remember that they always used to re-show the Monkeys all the time. And that's how I got to love the Monkeys, was through that telly program.
Actually, not a novelty band, a really good band with some great songs as well, especially their psychedelic kind of offshoots. But
definitely. Right, let's talk about aging rockers that should know better. Okay, you went to see the Sex Pistols the other week, eh? Were they good?
I mean, I still don't understand anybody saying that Frank Carter's not a good frontman for the Sex Pistols, because he seemed pretty spot on to me. The look, the attitude, the tattoos, the hair colour, pretty much everything about him was kind of on the money, and he had that energy as well, which I don't think the rest of the band will mind me saying that maybe they don't have that now, given their advancing years, but they still can play. And he's the one jumping about at the front of the stage, giving it loudly. So I thought it was a great day out, and I'm sure a lot of Glasgow's punks had a good day out as well, especially the lineup: Stranglers, Undertones,
Zillows. I saw
it was a who's who.
No, it was a who's who of punk and Scottish punk as well. I've got one problem, and I'm kind of on John Lydon's side here. I don't think they should call themselves the Sex Pistols. I don't think they're the Sex Pistols without John Lydon. I really didn't. It was quite weird. There was a gig through my way the other week there, and it was Ali Campbell presents the songs of UB40, and I really think it should have been billed like that rather than the Sex Pistols. But that's just me maybe being picnicky.
Maybe when they sold the amount of tickets that it sold, if they build it as something else, though. So, and technically, the majority of the band are the Sex Pistols. So, I don't know. I'm not going to argue the toss over it. I just thought it was a good day out, well put together.
I think for me, Steve Jones is an underrated guitarist. Truth, I think he is. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves for what he done, because he played the majority of the bass and the guitar on their most famous album, and I didn't really think he gets the credit he deserves at times, and I don't think the Disney thing painted him in a decent light either. Truthfully,
the band deserve credit for what they did that day, because they'd been in France for a festival and they only arrived on site very, very late in the day, and it was a kind of, normally for a show of that size, the band and their production are all loading in very, very early on, and it's sound checking at 11 a.m. and everything else. They didn't get that. They didn't get that luxury. They were flying by the seat of their pants and got there just in time. I think they all arrived, like their crew and production arrived at like 4:30 or something like that. So it was quite an impressive turnaround to get it all on stage on time and everything else, because it could have been a tricky situation. No headliner for the punk all day. But they made it work.
They could have just got a punk supergroup, everybody backstage, and just
Richard Jobson fronting it. I think he would have been into that, to be honest.
We've done it, JP.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. We've done it.
Right, that's one person, right? I met a guy last night at work who came up to me and was just like, "All right, I didn't want to talk to you about the gig. I just want to talk to you about A Celtic State of Mind." Massive fan, massive music fan. Loves when Paul and I talk about music or we talk about music. And so that's one person that doesn't like it. Met one person in person last night that does like it. So where do you go? Where do you go? You would just like turn into robots and talk about Celtic in a robotic way. Oh, here we go.
Tommy, I'm just going to talk about football now, so just hang around. Just hang around. 30 more seconds if we're going to talk about football.
48 minutes, I'm sure. Like 12 minutes of chit chat about music is not going to make your day.
I'm just kind of at the wind up, So it looks like we're going to get some money for Gustav Lagerbielke. It looks like he's going to go to Braga. No a bad move, I reckon. Portugal, one of the best stadiums I think I've seen, with that cliff behind one of the goals.
Yeah, go to that ground, yeah.
He scored in the Champions League, and now he's going to go to Portugal. I think he's done no too bad. It looks like we might make a slight loss on him. I'm not really that bothered. If we made a loss on him, no, for the guy, he needs to actually go and further his career. But it got me thinking, JP. It got me thinking about. It was quite obvious that our manager took an instant dislike to him, and he was never going to be in our plans. And it got me thinking about players that we've seen play that we've either took an instant dislike to or have done something that we've never forgave them for, even though they've maybe played for the club for quite a few number of years after that, right? Is there any Celtic player that we've signed, made his debut, that you've actually took an instant dislike to, and he's never came back for that? That player's never came back for that.
That is a tough question, but I'm sure there's definitely an answer in there. I mean, I wasn't overly enamoured with Kwon when I saw him, but I wasn't maybe ready to completely rule him out as a potential player off the back of a performance in what was a friendly, I think. I just didn't see what he was going to bring to the table. That isn't really. There's players that I've maybe grew to maybe not dislike, but maybe just think I'm not sure why they're here, because they're not good enough for Celtic. And Lagerbielke obviously falls into that category, because if he was good enough for Celtic, he would have been playing week in, week out, and he would have been a nailed-on centre-back. But the loss thing, I'm not entirely bothered about either, because, I mean, his goal in the Champions League that won us that game will have made us I don't know, is it $250,000 you get or something like that for winning that? So there's some money straight away. His contribution in the game against Rangers at Ibrox, where we won the game when no one gave us a hope in that game. There was maybe no monetary gain to that, but it was a contribution towards what became a league title. Sometimes moves just don't work out, and he never seemed to me to be you never looked at him and thought terrible player. Obviously, you knew there was limitations and there was a talk about his pace and everything else, but I wasn't kind of like, oh, this guy's an absolute dud. But now that he's on the way out, you're kind of like, okay, so that's further proof that transfer window 2 summers ago was horrendous. Like, and a really, really dangerous game to play in terms of your recruitment, trying to win trophies, league titles, everything else, keep the run going. Because one bad window, unless you've got the stock of a manager like Brendan Rodgers who can play with the cards that he's been dealt, there is a parallel universe, to quote you, where another manager's come in who isn't Brendan Rodgers and who hasn't been able to handle the squad or get the best out of what we had available to play. I mean, he even managed to get a tune out of Palma, and Lagerbielke played at Ibrox. So there was obviously people. There was contributions from those players, whilst he probably knew these aren't long-term Celtic players. These are guys I'm going to hang my hat on for 40, 50 games a season, but I'll get what I can out of them right now because we need to get through this period. And that first 6 months was tricky. There was people calling for Brendan Rodgers to go. I remember it. Colin Watt being one of them. You probably there was, and I remember at the time just being like, this isn't his fault. He's had to come in, play the game and say, oh yeah, the recruitment's so much better than last time and this, that and the next thing. Whereas in the back of his mind, the real voice is saying, this isn't what I signed up for, and I need to make sure that the next window and the window after that are so much better than this one that the first one that I've experienced.
I think there's actually an argument that nothing's really improved in that with the windows, because you look at the last window there, we basically sold their best striker and didn't replace him. The window before that, we got the business done late. I think there's. I'll probably do this over the next couple of days and have a look at this. That window that we called an absolute disaster was the scouting team's window, right? And if you look past the last 4 or 5 seasons, every player that's been a success has either came from the manager knowing that player or the player being offered by a certain agent that the manager trusted. And I think we can see that with Ida. It doesn't matter what you say about Ida. He scored 20 goals last season. He played a massive part in winners of the Scottish Cup and the league the season before that. If you look at the Japanese lads as well, the first 3 that come in, Ange Postecoglou knew them. I think there is an argument to say that our scouting team fails. And that window that we point back to now is a complete and utter failure. And that was solely on the scouting team. That's just, but I'll need to have a wee bit look more into that. You look at Matt O'Reilly, he was offered to us by an agent that Postecoglou used very well, knew very, very well at that point. So that wasn't a case of the scouting team picking up Matt O'Reilly. That was a circumstance that presented itself. Alistair Johnson, no, I'm really 100% sure. Maybe give the scouting team credit for that one, But
possibly.
So I think there's an argument to say that our scouting team has actually had more failures than anything else over the last 4 or 5 seasons, and this is where I'm worried about this signing. Apart for KT, so far the lad for Japan. But Brendan chucked me a curveball right enough by saying that I spoke to Michael Essien about Negrin, because that looked like a scouting team signing all over the back. But then again, maybe Rodgers would have said no, unless he hadn't spoke to SN.
Well,
You'll never know that.
I would like to think at this point in time, Brendan Rodgers has afforded enough credit to be the one that makes the decisions on the signings, and it's not just a case of, oh, we've got these 4 guys, pick one, and it's like, well, what if I don't want any of those 4?
Which I think's actually happened quite a lot.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, but we can't have a window like that again. So far, the window is decent, I'd say. I mean, obviously, we all knew Kieran Tierney was coming back. That's a massive signing, a huge signing that can't be underplayed just because of his previous connection. And the fact is, we've signed a Premier League defender. There's no two ways about it. Whether people want to get negative about it and say, oh, he's not going to play and he's going to be injured and he's going to be this and that. I mean, that may well turn out to be the case. I don't think it will be. I think it's up to Celtic to manage him properly and not expect him to play every single game. And now we've got a job on our hands to bring in somebody. And whether that's is it Inamura? Is that the name?
Inamura.
Yeah. Again, low fee. It was a $250,000 or something like that. There's a lot of question marks over that, given he's not played a lot of games. He's kind of new into football, isn't he? From the things that I've read.
Aye, he's a bit like Hatate. He comes from university and folk are saying he's 24. He's only played. Why is he took so long to get picked up? Well, he wasn't playing professional football until for I think the last 18 months. Really is the only time that he's been playing professional football. But it just seemed a strange one, and I'm only going to go with what Liam says, who has got a bit of an interest in the J League. I think he's going to get punted back out on loan right away. I think he'll be in the building and be put straight back out on loan, maybe a Scottish side or possibly somewhere in Europe. Just because of that, I think Rio was different because Postecoglou knew him, trusted him, and knew what he could do. But again, Inamura doesn't scream to me that over Rodgers walking into the first team sign. Just doesn't. That's it.
Nah, I mean, I would be expecting us to. I'm always a bit wary of. He's this position, but he can also play this position and this position. It's kind of like, right, so that means he's not good at one particular thing. He's okay at 3 things. I'd rather have one person that's really, really good in their position and is defined in that position, because I think that's what we need. I think we need a left back to cover for Kieran Tierney. We've lost Greg Taylor, who was a left back. He wasn't like he can play. Obviously, because of the style of football we played, Greg Taylor could adapt. And maybe you want someone that can adapt as well, but ultimately you want someone whose position says LB next to their name and not a series of slashes and brackets of, like the old Championship manager days when you'd signed Christian Daly or Rory Delap, and they would be like, they could play anywhere on the pitch. But I think we need to get a left back to properly replace Greg Taylor, who, despite what anybody might say about Greg Taylor, he was a brilliant player for Celtic. He was a reason that we won so many trophies, because he played almost all of the games. And you can't, whether you like Greg Taylor or not, or whether you liked him as a footballer or not, you cannot acknowledge that he was responsible for playing a huge part in all those trophies. You can't. You can't.
11 trophies. 11 trophies in 6 years.
Exactly.
So.
And he's decided to make the move abroad and play with the sun on his back at a relatively, still, he's only 27. It's not as if he's going out to pasture at like 31, 32. He'll probably play over there for maybe a couple of seasons, and if he likes it, he'll stay out there. But if not, I'm sure at 29 he could get a move somewhere else. Even if he only did 2 seasons out there or something. I mean, it'll be a bit of a weird one going out to a new country with a new baby. You're away from the family network, I suppose, of been able to like get your in-laws or your parents to look after the kid. But that's a
maybe the in-laws will get a good wee gig and move out there as well to help out.
There's a solution. But no, I mean, I think a left back, this guy that's coming in Amura, it does, like you say, it does scream a kind of like bring him in and then maybe get him a 6-month loan or something, see how he can play and potentially in our league, because it's maybe our pool and our connections in Japan has allowed us to get him that maybe other clubs in Scotland wouldn't be able to, and maybe he sees a pathway via Celtic to be able to. Maybe that's already been agreed that he does that.
And there's been a bit of to and fro this week, especially with the word pathway, with Daniel Cummins saying basically having a wee dig at Celtic, saying there was no pathway, and the lad that we've got for Fulham saying that he's been shown a pathway. So there seems to be two completely different stories there. I
was talking about that yesterday with my pal, and he was quite excited about Osmond, and I was like, yeah, okay, great, but I'm like, it just seems so strange that we've let one Scottish Celtic Academy product go. That sounds terrible calling him a product. He's not a product, he's a human being. But sounds terrible saying that we've let a player go. And there's a picture of Daniel Cummins sitting signing for West Ham. And then we've got a picture of a guy that we've taken from Fulham's academy signing for Celtic. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not down on Callum Osmond. Of course, I want the guy to do well, and yes, he comes with a pedigree, and yes, you can point to all the successes we've had from Fulham's academy, whether it's Paddy Roberts, Dembele, Matt O'Reilly, there'll probably be others. However, it just seems strange to me that what game time is he going to get this season? What is going to be when that window slams shut? Who are the striking options going to be realistically that we're going to be looking at to play in games from the 1st of September onwards? At this point, I don't know. Are we going to sign a big money striker that Brendan Rodgers said he wanted in January? Because certainly that's not Callum Osmond, is it? It's not. There's no way that that's what he was thinking. So there must be plans for Kenny to go either away on loan or permanently, because you've got to accommodate him. He's been in and around the first team last season. What, does he just get bombed out for Osmond? It's a very kind of odd situation at the moment that I'm not entirely comfortable with, especially with Champions League qualifiers. I
haven't been entirely comfortable with it since January, since Kyogo went away, and we were lucky enough that Dyson stepped up and was phenomenal when Kyogo left until the last couple of weeks of the season, but that was understandable for what he was going through personal wise. And I do think that's a worry. We either call Dyson our main striker and sign a winger, or we keep him out there and sign another striker. And as you say, Rodgers did actually say in the interview, it's behind the paywall, that they'll have a look at Osmond and see where he is. Mm-hmm. I'm going, you should already know where he is. Like there should be you should already know what the plan is for this guy. No, bring him in and have a look, and we'll see where we go there. I just think that I think Rodgers puts more weight on guys that come from the English system. Just I think he thinks the English academy system, where he came from, is far better than what we produce in Scotland. And he's probably got more trust in the physical, athletic and skill development in the English academies than he's got in our own. I really do think that. And Cummins was maybe just fallout for that. Fallout for that opinion. I didn't think Cummins was quick enough. I'd seen him quite a few times. I didn't think Cummins was quick enough. He could score, he had Billy. I just didn't think he had the pace.
But it's not as if he's gone to like a Shrewsbury or, some lower league. He's gone to West Ham. Like, it's quite a big club. I mean, he might go to West Ham, absolutely disappear, end up on loan at Shrewsbury, and then never be heard of again. And I obviously don't want that to happen for the guy, considering he's come through the Celtic system.
It's a low-risk punt for West Ham. A low-risk punt for West Ham whatsoever.
It is, but a question that I would be asking if I had the opportunity would be, so tell me more about Daniel Cummings. Tell me why is that? Why did that
What have
happen?
you scouted? What have you scouted? What have you seen? That's
well, from West Ham's point of view as well as Celtic's, but just to say to Brendan Rodgers, like what happened there? Like what was your thoughts on him? Like, I know he's not going to come out and say I didn't think he was good enough in a presser, but privately, if you were to ask him, it would be interesting to know what he actually thought.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the player's quality. I think what we've seen over the last year or two is Celtic are kind of dreadful at holding on to talent that's coming out of their academy. There seems to be a gap there, and there seems to be mistakes get made there time and time again. And it doesn't matter if these guys go and disappear. If the club want them to stay and they offer them contracts to stay and they don't accept it, then there is mistakes being made. It's maybe the timing that they offer the contracts or the terms and conditions of the contracts, but there's something wrong there which needs looked at, and maybe that's what Maloney will sort out when now that he's got that role.
Well, that has to be that is an absolute non-negotiable. In my opinion, to have that established, that pathway, that conversations to be had with players at the right time in their Celtic career. So, not letting it get to the stage where you've been paying them buttons and then they get offered a little bit more than buttons, and then the next thing there's Premier League clubs swooping and they just get taken away under freedom of contract or whatever, and we're left going, wait a minute, how did that happen? Well, it happened because you didn't take care of what was in your own house. And that's surely what a pathway manager, development manager, whatever you want to call him, that's what he's there for, to make sure that we don't lose players. And we've done everything we can in the lead up between sort of age 14, 15 to age 17, 18, that's clearly the time period where all those discussions have to be had, and like, right, what do you want to do? What's your goal? Where do you see yourself at 18? Where do you see yourself at 17 and everything else? I mean, I know that sounds mental to be having conversations with 15-year-olds about it, but
no, but that's been the conversations I had.
I know, but it has to happen at that point, because otherwise time just moves on. The players develop, the conversations haven't been had. They'll just be like, oh, well, Celtic don't want me. This team's up. Liverpool have offered me X. I'll see you later. I've got to think about my career.
Paul will tell you there's a communication breakdown between the academy and the first team, and he's had knowledge of it, and he's been told firsthand. That's not for me to rehash that. And so Paul says it on here often enough. There was another guy left Celtic and went to West Ham, young Irish boy, and he scored for West Ham in the Carabao Cup or something like that. Can't remember his name. It'll come back to me. Paul Andrew Martin, Osman will play for Celtic. Cummins won't get near West Ham. That could well be the case. I think we probably will see Callum Osman play for Celtic first team before we'll see Daniel Cummins play for West Ham.
Well, there's a bet. There's a bet for you if ever there was one. Was it not Armstrong Okoflex? Is that who?
That's the guy. He did score for West Ham and
scored against us in that 6-2 game. I think, did he not?
Did he?
Remember the friendly, the socially distanced friendly that we had at Celtic Park. It was the first game I went. There you go. It was the first game I went back to Celtic Park since.
Same as me.
I didn't get one for the Midtjylland game.
No, I got one for the West Ham game. That was a game that Barkas forgot where his goals were. If you remember, one of the goals that he lost was he was completely about 15 yards away from his near post. And didn't
it wasn't great. It wasn't great, but I stand by my perception of Barkas. I think he played something like 18 or 19 games for Celtic, and he's managed to get a move and hold down a jersey at a fairly decent side. So he's not ended up playing for Yeovil or something like that. You know what I mean? He's not as bad a keeper as everybody made him out to be. And I think he was a victim of circumstance in terms of that season, as were other players. Shane Duffy went on to play pretty well after that in the Premier League and the Championship. So again, didn't end up some amateur side. He was just in the wrong form at Celtic, and
there's loads of players like that. Absolutely loads of players that just can't handle playing for Celtic, or when they come to the club, something's no right there, and things move on. You mentioned Greg Taylor, and I think Greg Taylor, when we were talking about the first question I asked you, was a player that you just took a dislike to, or done something that you took a dislike to. I think Greg Taylor's in that.
Greg Taylor I was kind of rooting for, because I'd heard that when he first signed.
Oh, I'm not saying us. I'm saying there's a lot of Celtic fans. One time Taylor got caught with the ball across his head, and that was it. He was completely written off at that point then. And that was a question I sort of asked right at the start. Is there anybody where you've just had this irrational like dislike to fail one point?
I'm probably giving people way more slack than they maybe deserves. I'm kind of that way, in that I kind of don't want to see anything negative straight away. If a player has played consistently bad over a period of time, that's when I'll kind of go, right, I'm done. Like I don't take small sample sizes, really. It's just, I don't know, it's just the way I am. But there's maybe the same person could watch the same player and straight away make a call on it and be right about that player, and then 6 months later I'll be like, I actually agree with you. But I've watched them for 6 months. I didn't make the decision after one game, you know.
And also the other part of the question, you took an instant dislike to when he actually signed. So I've said this on this podcast quite a few times. Mine was always Near Beaton. And my rational dislike of Near Beaton came in the 2-2 draw against Rangers, where we lost on penalties in the semi-final. When Near Beaton faked injury to try and come off, when we had already used all the subs, and he was hobbling about holding his hamstring, we equalised, and all of a sudden he was galloping about again. And for that point, any time he's on the team sheet, I went, I can't stand you. Just at that point, I maybe did imagine it. But I remember he was holding his hamstring on the touchline, he was making signals to the bench, and then we equalised about 2 minutes later, then he was running about fine. And I went, you're a bottle job. You absolutely. And for that point, I've never took to him. And he played for another 5 years after that. And he played at centre half, and he had great games for us. But for that point, I had that irrational dislike of Near Beaton. Not as a person, just as that football player. I just didn't take to him after that point.
It took me a few years. It took me a few years with him to feel the same way. But that rugby tackle in Morelos in the game at Ibrox was just unforgivable. And you're like, what on earth? There was another incident as well with him in a European game where I was like, nah, I'm done with him. But again, this is like after a few years of watching him rather than like straight away. I didn't clock that feigning of injury in the semi-final. That was a dark day.
Truthfully as well, it took me a wee while to forgive Chris Sutton for getting sent off at Ibrox for what I seen deliberately. He got sent off at Ibrox when the game was gone our way.
Was that 3 each? No,
we got beat. We definitely got beat. I can't. But he even admits that the red mist came down and the sending off was probably planned. Like,
I mean, it's not like him to lose it, is it? I mean, he did that story that Neil Lennon told about how he didn't like Beckham. Did you watch the open goal with Neil Lennon?
I haven't yet. No.
He's talking about how when they were going down to play the Giggs testimonial, and Sutton was like that to Lennon, he was just like, Beckham, can't stand him. Neil Lennon was like, why? And he was just like, just too much pizzazz around him, and like not enough football or something like that. So there was like £150 kitty bet about who would go and like slap Beckham. And I think Jackie McNamara absolutely scissored Giggs like
He did.
minutes into the game, and then it caused a stramash. And and then Lennon was getting involved, and Roy Keane said to Lennon, "Oh, just leave it." And then Sutton just came over, smacked Beckham in the back of the head, just a kind of like, I don't know, a kind of, not like a hard hit, but just like kind of clipped him round the head, and then ran off. And that was that. He got the £150 that they put in a kitty. Brilliant, really good.
Aye, it's these things happen. I mean, Brian McClure didn't like David Beckham. I mean, he says that quite a lot of times, and he says that on Friday night as well.
Mm-hmm.
He says he just couldn't take to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But Chalky's that kind of. Some folk didn't take to Chalky.
I was at Simple Minds on Friday, so I'm kind of gutted. Paul seems to pick these dates, and there's something I've already got on, or I'm working, or something like that. And then Peter Grant and Brian McClure together must have been unbelievable. Were you there? You were there.
I was there. Yes, they were really, really good. It's good to get two guys for that era together. And
I don't think they'd done something together before, had they?
No, but like when you saw them talking, it was like you could tell that they got on. You could tell that Peter knew what Chalky was like, and knew the sarcasm and his put downs, and it was quite funny. Somebody asked the worst Celtic player I'd ever played for, and Peter Grant gave this sort of meandering answer. No giving anybody's name. And he's got, if you get to that level, you've got to have a decent player. Sometimes this happens, that happens. It just doesn't work out for them. Like an assistant manager's answer that you know, like a pragmatic answer. And Brian McClure just turned round and went, "What about Jim Melrose?" And Granty nearly fell off the chair. He nearly fell off his chair. It was really, really funny, just the way he says it. And you could tell that Peter agreed with him, but didn't want to actually say
it publicly.
Didn't want to say it publicly. It was funny. Jim Melrose has been a butt of a lot of the guys' jokes for the 80s. I've seen a couple of things with Roy Aitken, Pat Bonner, and that. And Jim Melrose seems to get it quite tight off them.
I can't say I know too much about him. I mean, my knowledge of the sort of the 80s Celtic team is the 88 team, and if Jim Melrose was in that squad, then I certainly didn't know about it. I don't know if he was gone before that.
Somebody will probably correct me. Somebody older will correct me. I think he was away by about 83, 84.
Oh, right, okay.
I think Jim Melrose was away by that point. I'm like you, the centenary team was my team, but I really did love Brian McClure before that. I'm just slightly older than you, and McClure was scoring goals and that. So the 85 team as well is like, I've got fond memories of that.
Yeah, I've got no memory of Brian McClure at Celtic. Brian McClure to me is Man United. Like that'll maybe be like sacrilege to a lot of Celtic fans listening, but it's just I wasn't old enough to know of him in a Celtic shirt. I've read enough and heard enough about the controversy of his transfer and how it went to a tribunal, didn't it? And it was Alex Ferguson's first signing for Man United, I think. It
was, yes. And when I brung that up to him, I says, "Oh, were you telling Fergie what was happening in the dressing room?" Because he was under pressure at Man United at that point. And he completely slaughtered me for it. He says, "You trying to call me a spy? You trying to?" He says, "No, the spies were the captains," and he speaks about that. He completely slaughtered me for that. But that's fair enough. You can take that. Folks say didn't meet your heroes, but Brian McClure was one of my heroes. He also scored a great goal in the cup final. We got beat, League Cup final, we got beat 3-2 off Rangers. It was one of the best Celtic goals I've ever seen. But you'll never see it because we lost the cup final. And that was one of the things I spoke about last year with Dyson's goal in the League Cup final. I'm glad that we won that so we can see that goal again and again. And nobody ever sees McClure's goal. I think it's in the 83 League Cup final. It's an absolute peachy goal. I'll go to some of the comments regarding guys who he just never took to as Celtic players. Thomas Burns comes in, Wayne Biggins. Again, if I was going to talk about Biggins, I think that was more to do with the time that he came in, rather than his ability as a football player.
I remember the signing, but there's no way I could say I was remotely savvy enough to know, like, straight away, I'm not going to like this guy. I mean, I don't even really think I particularly realised that was the market we were shopping in at that time. I mean, that's probably what, 93, 94?
93, yeah, it would be 93, aye.
Yeah, I mean, I would have probably just been thinking that's the market that we shop in. Like, I wouldn't be thinking, oh, well,
Cooks
why
for the army.
Hi, why are we signing guys for like the lower leagues in England and things like that? I mean, the same question could be asked nowadays potentially about another team, but I just took it as gospel that's what we did. We signed players from England. We signed players from. We didn't really in Scotland, obviously, but at that point in time, there was so few foreigners that were at Celtic. They just didn't exist. Like there was a couple of Polish players, yes. And Dovchik and Jakanowski.
Oh, I still love Dovchik. Dovchik's one of the best left backs I've ever seen. I
mean, I just loved him because my granddad was Polish and there was Polish players playing for Celtic, so I thought that was really cool. But
until Tierney came along, Dovchik was always my left back. If somebody asked me to pick a Celtic, until Tierney came along, it was always Dovchik.
If you think back to that time, it wasn't really until Van Hooijdonk and Tom and Cadeti and all that came in that there was like that started to sort of feel like we were shopping in a different market rather than. So the fact that we signed Wayne Biggins would have been completely lost on me to an older Celtic fan at that time. They'd be like, "Oh my God, how the mighty have fallen! This is what we're signing." So maybe people would have made that decision based on their knowledge at the time, but I had no knowledge at all. I mean, I thought Stuart Slater was going to be brilliant because we paid over £1 million for him, and
Martin Hayes as well, coming for Arsenal, and he was getting a game for Arsenal at the time.
Lee Martin.
I think he done a job for us actually. I don't think he was as bad. Again, it was a poor time to come to Celtic, but I think Martin done not a bad job for us. For what I remember. Andy Payton for that time. I love Andy Payton, still love Andy Payton. I think I would like to have seen Payton in a decent Celtic team.
I like Andy Payton as well. I thought, again, not somebody that I knew really a lot about where he'd come from. I just as a wee guy, I just liked him. I liked his energy, and he scored in the first Rangers game that I went to in '93 as well. Him and John Collins. So for that, he's immortal to me. I think he score the first goal in that game or the second one. I need to look back. I think it maybe was the first one. It was the same game that ended up with chalk and blood all over his head from probably fighting at that game. That was at Celtic Park, March 1993. We won 2-1. Mark Hateley scored for Rangers with about 12 minutes to go. What an experience that was. I'm so glad I got it. I've just done that kind of like border between the old Celtic Park and Fergus's Celtic Park, but I got to experience a wee bit of it. I would have loved to experience more, but then I'd be sitting here talking to you 50 plus.
50 plus, I know. Smell the glove points out. Maybe my mind's playing tricks on me. Jockey scored in the 83 League Cup final when we lost 3-2. McCoy scored a hat-trick in that game. And a better goal in the 86 League Cup final when we lost 2-1. We definitely lost the cup final. We definitely did. I think it could be the 86 one now. Smell the gloves pointed that out to me. Where the players again, Gordon Corey comes in, Kenny Miller. I think there was a lot of doubts about Kenny Miller when he signed it right away. Really right away.
It was like a mixture between the get it up here of him signing for us and how that made them feel, but then there was also the fact that it was Kenny Miller. I mean, the thing is, on reflection, the Kenny Miller that you've seen be in the media and being very pro Rangers in the media and almost barely talking about his time at Celtic, that if I'd have known that that was what Kenny Miller would become, I would have certainly given him less of my time at that point. But yeah, I mean, he scored for us against them. It was so weird. It's so weird how that's just almost kind of like, have we been kind of
airbrushed out of history?
Been like total recalled into believing that didn't happen? It's like, oh, it definitely did. I'm pretty sure I was there.
And he over-celebrated as well.
And did not run up right up to the camera. And then he did the same thing when he went back to Rangers.
When he went back to them,
scored against us in that. But I'm at the point now that it's been far enough away for the season. I'm actually really wanting to get back to a game now. I don't know if you're at that same point or if you're still enjoying the downtime, but I'm just really looking forward. I mean, folk are talking about no going to the Newcastle game. I'll be there. I want to see the team play again. Yeah, they are apparently. Apparently they've given 10,000 to Newcastle, which is unprecedented. If Newcastle sell 10,000 tickets for that game, can you remember a support in the modern age in that stadium since it became all seated, bringing a 10,000 support? I mean, friendly or otherwise, I just can't think of anybody bringing that level of support before. We've never given that allocation to anybody.
We've never given that allocation before a visiting side.
I mean, we took 10,000 to Old Trafford for Ryan Giggs' testimonial, so we had the whole of that stand behind the goal, which was unreal. But
then we took a larger support to the Roy Keane because we got because we had the free tier stand across for the top, for the telecameras are across there.
All right,
we were in there for the Roy Keane testimonial.
I didn't realise I wasn't at the Keane testimonial. I was just at the Giggs one.
Aye.
And the Tom Boyd one at Celtic Park when they beat us 2-0.
I'm still liking the downtime because I still haven't forgiven them for the cup final. I'm still feeling about the fact that is the worst team I've ever seen us lose a cup final to.
Oh, absolutely.
That is the worst team I've ever seen us lose a cup final to, and it's all our own fault. And even when I've seen the players coming back and they're going, we won 2 trophies, blah, blah, and Costin Trusty says, I've only lost a treble in penalty kicks. And I'm going, no, you should be biling like me. I mean, as soon as Alistair Johnson missed, I turned round and didn't even look back. I just walked right out. And that's where I'm still at, with the majority of that side. I reckon we blew it. It's one of the most... and no embarrassing, but it's self-inflicted wounds I've ever seen a Celtic team do in our lifetime. And as Pat Dolan just reminds me, Raith Rovers was worse. I think it's probably up there with Raith Rovers.
Raith Rovers was a lot worse. I hadn't seen us win a trophy at that point, really, in the flesh, and I didn't for another 6 years. So the Raith Rovers, I'm no having the Aberdeen game was worse than Raith Rovers. Absolutely no chance, because Raith Rovers, we as a club at that point were so desperate for success. Tommy Burns was the manager. It was just like, and then to lose with Tommy Burns as the manager, Paul McStay missing the penalty, it was just like, how many boxes can you tick here of like utter misery? And I was a wee guy, and it was at Ibrox as well. I'm sorry that all of those things completely trump the Aberdeen game in terms of misery and embarrassment.
It does, but I think the level of going into that game so far as favourites, and the way the game we were that Raith Rovers game New Year, when we went 2-1 up, then Gordon Marshall chucked one into the back of the net to Gordon DL, and that day you had the same kind of feeling as I had at the cup final. As soon as Castor Schmeichel threw the ball into the back of the net, you were like, that this is no our day. And we've spoke about this at length. The whole atmosphere that day was absolutely bizarre. It's one of the bizarrest atmospheres that I've ever had in a cup final.
But again, that's why I want to get back. I want to get back and see us win again. And I certainly want to try and be at Pittodrie for the second game in the league that we play them? Because,
I just don't think the players cared. And I still don't think, when you see some of the comments with them, I still don't think they're actually that bothered that they lost a cup final to one of the worst teams, to the worst team I've ever seen us lose a cup final to. I don't think they're actually that bothered.
I mean, that
annoys me.
Did it not bother Callum McGregor? I think it bothered Callum McGregor.
But then, even then, I was annoyed with McGregor's reaction. I was like that. I was going, stop greeting, get on with it. If you'd done your job, you wouldn't be greeting. That was my whole take on the Callum McGregor thing. Take your medicine. That's the first cup final you lost. But by the way, you only lost it because you didn't do your job. Get on with it. And I just don't think that's where maybe that's right or wrong, and maybe that's just me. But I don't think the players have took it seriously enough. It ruined my summer. It still ruined my summer.
It's not ruined mine. It's just a reminder to everybody to not take trophy wins for granted, because they're so hard to come by, and trebles are, although we've normalised them, they're not easy. And just like the previous season when we lost at Kilmarnock to get knocked out of the League Cup, that can happen on a particular day. One thing goes for one team, and then the rest of the game, nothing goes for the other team, and then suddenly you're out. And that's why all our trophy wins, treble wins have been incredible. And even in that Invincible season where we were brilliant, it took a last-minute goal from Tom Rogic to win it. So, and that was against an okay Aberdeen side. I wouldn't say it was a good Aberdeen side. It was an okay Aberdeen side. And
it was a better Aberdeen side than what we faced.
100%. 100%. I mean, far, far better. There's no two ways about it that Aberdeen team were kind of toothless, but they found an energy and took momentum probably from their support behind the goal after they scored. I say they scored. We conceded. So I mean it's a sore one to think back on, but I really want to get back to the games, and I hope that I know it's rubbish that we've not got the Newcastle game on the season ticket, and I'm as annoyed about the slow and soft removal of additional benefits to your season ticket that's just crept in.
It was the slow and soft. They just disappeared.
Well,
they didn't say nothing. They say nothing.
No, I know. That's true. There's never been anything released to say, no. Oh, by the way, we're not going to be doing this anymore or anything like that. But as my mate Chris pointed out yesterday, the board must have thought in 2020 season 2021 that if the fan base are willing to pay for a season ticket where they don't actually step inside the stadium for the entire season, then we can get away with doing this. We can get away with making the Newcastle game a paid-only game or not a non-season ticket game. And I don't want to see the ground half empty and 10,000 Newcastle fans. I just think there surely comes a point where you go, I still want to go and support my team. I know that it's rubbish that we've not got it in the season ticket. I know money is tight for a lot of people, but it's it's not as if there's three of them. We've got one fixture as a pre-season friendly at Celtic Park, and all the rest of them are in Italy and Ireland. And is that right? There's one in Ireland, isn't there? We're not
playing Cork City.
Yeah.
Next Thursday we play Cork City.
And then we've got the Italian thing.
Next Tuesday.
I'm not going to Lake Como. I certainly don't have the money to do that. And I won't be going to Ireland. So my only opportunity to see Celtic before Flag Day is the Newcastle game, and I'm going to take that. I'm not going to apologise for wanting to go to a game that a lot of people don't want to go to, but I think this is an opportunity for people that don't get to go to the games regularly to go and see Celtic. Go and experience the match day, because why wouldn't you? Why would you just? Well, you're a person who can afford it have got a son or a daughter that wants to go to the game, they can't get tickets for Celtic games because they're sold out, go to that game. I know it might not be the most exciting of friendlies, but it's against Premier League opposition. Get to see our new signings. Hopefully there'll be more in the door by then. I'm not trying to sell it for the club or anything like that. I'll repeat, I'm not happy about the fact that it's not on my season ticket. And I kind of
Michael Nicholson hiding in your bookcase.
I'm not happy with the fact I can't just go and tap my ticket and go in. But at the same time, I want to see Celtic. I'm like, why would I've been on this podcast for 5 years if I'm going to turn around at this point and be like, all right, I've not seen Celtic since the end of May when we lost a cup final. I'm not going to go and pay 25 quid to go and see Celtic against Newcastle. It just doesn't stack up. Like I would feel a bit embarrassed if that's what I was saying. You know, you're either a supporter or you're not. And I just think deliberately boycotting the game, fair enough if you can't afford it. That's a different story. But if you can afford it, you're like, nah, I'm not going. Like, why? Like, I didn't. Do you feel that way?
I've got no interest in going to any friendly game and paying
Really?
25 quid for the privilege. Aye. They're glorified training sessions. That's all they are. I'm out the country when it is anyway, but I wouldn't be going even. I wouldn't be going even if I was here. I wouldn't be paying 25 quid to go and watch a glorified friendly when I've just paid £800 for 2 seasons.
Oh no, that's like I said. At the same time, I do have grievances over the fact that as a season ticket holder combined in my life for 20 years.
But understand both views, understand your view and understand the views that other folk are taking.
It's wild that, like, there was a time and place where we had a pre-season friendly on the card and the first Champions League qualifier or European qualifier would always be included. So that's, I'd say, the thick end of 60, 70 quid that you're taking off the season ticket value and then asking people to buy it again or buy them on top of that. So I absolutely get it, but I don't get people just refusing to go because they don't have they just think it's a complete waste of time. And that's what you think, and that's fine, but that's all about opinions, isn't it? It's not but at the same time, would you want to see 10,000 Celtic fans, an empty Celtic Park, and then 10,000 Newcastle fans? I don't think that would be. No, and hopefully it's going to embarrass the board into doing something. Well, but it won't. If that is some sort of like watershed moment, and it really does like look bad or as bad as maybe it's been anticipated, then that might be the time that they have a rethink. And if as a result, then next season there is a pre-season friendly and it is in our card, then I will hold my hands up to all the people who are boycotting it or whatever and being like, okay, you moved the needle on that, so fair play to you. But I mean, I still want to go because I just want to see Celtic. The reason that they don't make it open to season ticket holders because they don't know how many season ticket holders are going to turn up. Mm-hmm. And so what they do is they make it buy a ticket so they can, and they sell the bottom tier first. So they didn't need to open the top tier. It's all about cost. That's what Celtic told me about 10 years ago. It's all about cost. That's why they do it. But then they could still say to season ticket holders, you can get a ticket on your season ticket, but it's not going to be your seat. And they could do that all the way. But then some season ticket holders would moan that they're getting a lesser seat for the one that they've actually paid for. So that's seemingly that was their reason for they tell me that about 10 years ago. That didn't, as I say, I get both sides of the argument. I really, really do. I get fair play to you. You want to go and support the side. Aye, that's great. That's fine with me. I just don't want to go and pay for a friendly. I mean, I hardly ever watch the friendlies anyway. So because they are just glorified training sessions to me. And that's it. Also, get your point where what you were saying about losing the cup final and not to take it for granted. And I am still no over it, not because I take winning cups for granted,
but because of the last 3 months of the season led up to that point. And that's why I'm really, really annoyed. Yes, you can lose cup games. If we had turned up that game, and the fact is we were 1-0 up against a team that was offering nothing, and we still couldn't get it over the line. And there was a 3 months leading up to that point, which I'm possibly more annoyed at. But no, I'm never going to take winning trophies for granted. Never.
In the same way as I would have hoped. Well, certainly for me anyway. Like in terms of having watched them win a league, fair enough, they didn't get to see it, and technically we didn't really either because we didn't see any games in the season that they did. But that the fuel and the joy and that I've taken from every single trophy we've won since that season has been immense, and I would hope that there's a renewed hunger amongst the club, the team, the manager, to right the wrong of that day that you're talking about, and go again this season and claim the trophy back, just in the exact same way as Rodgers mentioned several times that he was miffed that they'd lost the League Cup 2 seasons ago, and that had been something that eluded him, and why he was so determined to get it back last season. And the way we won it back was obviously great that it was against them in the final, but we've now lost the Scottish Cup in his second season, so he'll be just as itching to get that back next season, and that's a really good thing because it's the last game of the season. That means that you can't switch off in February because you need to. If there's that hunger there to get that trophy back and to point to the scenes at the end, and Cal McGregor won't have forgotten that in a hurry.
Well, he did say that in an interview. He says that it's going to drive him on this season.
Yeah, 100%.
And hopefully, obviously, I hope it does. I'm just having a look at some of the Simon Fedeni points that I could be seen beaten again for the qualifiers. That might tip me over the edge. We'll talk about that kit. Celtic released the American stuff the day. That baseball top's smart, and it should be the third kit, eh? No, I'm talking about the actual design. No, the actual baseball. No, the baseball thing. It shows you Adidas have got a decent designer somewhere.
I mean, I don't have an issue with it. It's not something I'm going to buy, but there'll be plenty of folk that are into Celtic and baseball that, that is baseball, right?
It is baseball. It's a baseball kit.
There'll be plenty of people that are into both, and I'm sure it'll sell well. Probably sell well in the States as well. As well that third kit that was released last week. I mean, folk getting so up to. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's the greatest kit, but I don't think it's the worst either. But folk get so up in arms about a football kit. It's just like, aye, okay, it'll be here for a season, it'll be gone. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, and it'll probably end up selling well, just like that the crocodile kit from 2 years ago, which turned out to be the best selling Celtic kit. So that I'm sure in a year's time the figures will be on the wall about how much this third kit sold, and it'll probably be quite a lot. I'm just really gutted that they've not released a kit like that with a trefoil like that.
Yes.
How on earth are we 5 years into a deal with Adidas and we've not seen? Fair enough, we've seen some training gear and some additional drops or whatever they call them, but we've not seen an actual Celtic kit with a trefoil. And
I know, and
the day that happens will probably be the best Celtic. I would hope it would be the best Celtic kit.
I had a look at that baseball kit this morning, the white with the pinstripes, and I'm going, imagine that as an actual kit with a trefoil on it. I'm all across that. I am all across that because
different
different neck, but the actual design. Yeah. I'm going, that's a Celtic dream. That's a 1982 away top, that, and the trefoil on it. And
they'll do it eventually. They've got to.
That's amazing. But I think there's a bit of cloudiness about this Adidas deal because we were all told we're an elite club, which means you do get a trefoil kit. Mm-hmm. Newcastle have only been there 1 year and they've got a trefoil kit already, which was released last week with Sam Fender doing the gig in the Irish Tyneside club. And so I'm wondering, why have we not got one? We've been there 5 years now, seemingly we're one of the elite clubs, but we haven't got a trefoil kit.
And then you look at the Oasis kit that
I was going to speak about that.
It's been released Bohemians. And then the advert for it with Weller as the barman. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Brilliant, man. Like, absolutely class. I mean, I don't know if I'll get it just because it looks too much like a Man City kit.
It does,
But, you know, absolute props to them for the way that they devised it and the advert and everything else. And you think, well, obviously Paul spoke about speaking to Brian Cannon about approaching Celtic, and then it didn't happen. You're like, that could have been us.
I saw somebody online going like that. It's easy for Bohemians because they're sponsored by O'Neill's. And I'm going, wait a minute, Oasis have just released a whole line of merch with Adidas. So it would have been easy enough to go to Adidas and have that collaboration because we're already with Adidas. And obviously Oasis had signed something with Adidas. And you're going...
And Oasis are Celtic fans, and that's not trying to claim anything. It's well documented they're Celtic fans. Their dad got them Celtic mugs, and it was the only thing their dad ever got them, and that started the love for Celtic at a very young age. So.
And I don't know if you've seen it. You've seen the front cover of the Celtic View?
No.
The new Celtic View that's coming out, they've ripped off the front cover of Definitely Maybe.
All right.
Go and have a look at it after. Yeah. Go and have a look for it after we come off here.
Yeah.
Like, it's got Brendan lying on the floor as Liam, and Callum McGregor sitting playing the guitar. And,
is it AI or is it an actual shoot?
AI.
All right.
Of course it's AI.
Surely they're not actually. Have you seen Brian Cannon's recreation of the Morning Glory cover? With the
not
picture,
yet, no.
Picture taken in the same street as the front cover of Morning Glory, but it's the same street exactly however many years later, taken at the exact same time. And it's obviously the people aren't in the middle, the two folk aren't in the middle. It's just the street taken at the same time. It's brilliant, really clever idea.
I'll have a look for it. JP, we've been on for an hour and we've been on an hour and 12 minutes.
And we talked about Celtic for an hour of that. So
we did, and we came full circle. We spoke about music at the start, and we're talking about music at the end again.
And your man Thomas Burns came back, so he obviously didn't.
I know. So did the other boy. The other boy was in the comments as well, saying why he's talking about music. He's been there the whole time as well. It's like empty threats, empty vessels. Right, lads. Thank you, everybody that's been in the comments. JP, thank you very much for what has been a fabulous hour. And just remember, lads, don't be bams to each other, and hail, hail.